Hi you guys, and welcome to Sequester. I had to run to the shop for a little bit to do some back of the office work, and I thought it'd be fun to film step 2 from the inside and the outside of Cozy Creative Center. This is my shop in El Cajon, California, and I'll show you around a little bit while we're here, and then we'll get on to step 2. So here's the shop. This is the facade. I have always loved how great and big this front of our shop looked. This is part of it, and then if we scroll over, we have the other half of it. The beautiful thing about this is, look at that window. Isn't that a fantastic window to hold quilts? So I'm going in today. Notice there's a Bernina sewing machine right in front there. I got an urgent message from somebody who just hates sewing on her sewing machine, and being confined and locked up, she might need a new one. So I have the Bernina 475 right there. I actually had to bring it back from home because it's the one I'm sewing on right now. I think it might be just the thing to help her have a better sewing experience. Anyway, here we have in the window a couple of our quilts. The one on the left features Kaffe, and the middle one features the Mix It Up book using 10-inch squares. And here we have in the window, can you see my own reflection? Hi, you can. You have double dipping. This is one of 2 quilts that you get from our double dipping pattern. It was designed by Izzy. Izzy's one of our staff members. I have the best staff members. And here's our red front doors. When we first moved in here, I said I want the doors red because that's our color. And my guy is like, really, Daniela? I'm like, yeah, I do. I want them red. I've never regretted it. I like big, bold decisions like that. Not all decisions come easy to me, but that one did. All right, here, let's go in. Don't worry, I'll pick up the machine. I won't leave it out there. So this is the store. Isn't these rafters amazing? I've always loved these rafters. We've been in this location about 6 years now. Before that, we were in a different location just 3 miles down the road. It was also great. Not as big as this one though. So very friendly, open entryway. Of course, as a shop owner, all I can see is those bolts need tidying up. We've kind of abandoned some of our tidying up duties since we closed the doors. And then here is our cash register. And then we have a couple of quilts hanging up there. That one over there is 9 sisters. Not 7 sisters, not 6 sisters, 9 sisters. And we're featuring the fabric from, oh, come on, Daniela, who did that? Ruby Star Society. Okay, gotta get the phone. I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. So, where was I? Sequester, step 2. Today we're going to talk about the step 2, which is very simple. Next step, which will be in a couple of days, we'll talk about block A, the first block, so we'll actually get into sewing and piecing. Today it's just going to be about cutting. But there's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, yes, you guys pointed out there was a typo on step 1 of the Sequester pattern. That typo is the size. I think it's for the throw or if it's for the twin. I'm going to let that one go. It's either the throw or the twin. It doesn't finish 6 inches long. It is whatever the width was. I'm going to fix that and upload a new step 1 so you can download that step 1 from the Sequester page on our website. So go to cozyquilt.com. You'll see a burst of our logo that says Sequester. If you click on that, you'll go to all of the Sequester files. I'll have all of the steps listed there, one by one by one by one. You can download each of them and collect the whole pattern. Once this is done, I'll take down all of the steps. That's going to be in the future, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. So first, we're going to be cutting. That is going to be step 2. Links are down below, by the way, so if you can just scroll on down and you'll find links that'll take us directly to the website or directly to the patterns. Okay, so another thing I wanted to tell you about was more about your fabric. I know I heard from a couple of you that you don't have enough background fabric or you're very close to your background fabric. I have good news. If you think you are just a little bit shy of your background fabric, you can choose to skip the sashing part of this cutting. Put that aside for later because that can be a different background. So you have, and there's always wiggle room. So you do not have to fret if you're like just a couple inches shy of the yardage that we give you. There's a little insight into our patterns too. I always pad the exact yardage by about 5%. I know that as we go, we make little errors, or we need to square up as we go. So all of our yardage has a 5% increase from what you actually need to get the cuts done. I find that that 5% is just like the perfect amount of padding. Another thing to know about our patterns, I always calculate the width of fabric at 40 inches. A lot of our fabric is 42, sometimes 44 inches long, but I always do it at 40 because I never want the person that has that one 40-inch strip to be shy. So you might have actually a little more than the pattern calls for when you're cutting stuff out of your strip sets. Okay, so we talked about the cutting, we talked about the background. I'm going to show you a little bit about how I like to cut. I only have two hands and I can't hold the camera while I do this, so I don't have the technology yet to do that. So I'm going to show you by pointing how I like to cut my strips. Over here we use either the June Taylor Shape Cut, or our newest favorite is the Stripology ruler from Creative Grids. In fact, way back when we started to do Strip Club as an ongoing thing at our shop, we used to cut bundles and bundles of 2.5-inch strips. What I would use is the Shape Cut, or now the same technology in the Stripology ruler. I'd hand them out to a bunch of people and the strips always came back exactly the same. So that's how accurate the Stripology ruler is. If you want to go over to my friend Gudrun's site, GE Designs, she's got some wonderful tutorials on how to use the ruler. It's actually her invention. And she's actually doing a sew along too. So you can see what she's doing and you can keep extra busy in your sewing room, and you can bring the personalities into your room and we can say hi and we can all be friends together. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit about that. I mentioned in the other video that the accent fabric is not critical. It's just a little pop of color, and I wanted to show you what color we are going to be using. Of all those wonderful colors that we have with a little shimmer in there, this is going to be our accent. So it's the same fabric. It's just going to be uniformly in the block in the same place. It's just a little pop of color, so don't fret too much about your accent fabric. Okay, so let me show you a little bit about how I cut, and then you'll expect these patterns in a few days, one at a time, and as I mentioned in the last video, I think there's probably about 5 or 6 different steps to put this project together, and it is a mystery, and I know some of you have been asking what does it look like, but we're gonna do it step by step, so you're just gonna have to let this unfold. Okay, good, let's talk about cutting. Okay, so here I have my background fabric. It's on my cutting board. I'm still at the shop and I noticed there's a huge glare with the fluorescent lights. Sorry about that. Oh, at least you can see we have good lighting here. I have placed the Stripology ruler, and this is the original Stripology ruler, on top of my background fabric. This is the fold originally off the bolt, and then I have folded it another time, making sure that this edge is parallel to this edge. I use my lines on my cutting mat for that. I don't really use my lines on my cutting mat for much else, but I do I like them to help line up that these are parallel. I put the ruler on the fabric and make sure that one of the bottom line butts up with the edge, and then I'm going to cut. This is for the 2.5-inch section. The 0 will trim off any uneven edges on the far left. And then the wonderful thing about Stripology is, if you notice, let me see if I can get a better shot. She has created rectangles at every 2.5-inch interval. So at the 0, 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10. This is very helpful because that's about as far as I can go doing 2.5 multiples in my head. And now I don't even have to think. I know I can just go straight to the rectangles. There's also for the stars at 1.5, and there's a key here. It says star 1.5, square 2.5. Oh, thank God that's what I said. Oh, very good. Okay, so rotary cutter inside the groove of the ruler. Let me get the rotary cutter. Right inside the groove, and then you're going to go all the way through the groove to the top, and then release. Don't move the ruler. Next, you're going to go to that 2.5-inch mark, and then the 5, and then the 7. This is all for the 2.5-inch cuts. Go through as far as you can, placing the ruler down only once, and then when you're done, and don't let it shift, then when you're done, you can remove the ruler, and like by magic, the square up edge you can throw away, or you can use to tie up a cute little package at a later time. And now you have 2.5-inch strips, beautifully cut. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, that's where I stopped. You can do the same thing for the 1.5-inch. So Stripology This wonderful ruler is terrific because you can get as many cuts as, what is that, 10 cuts with 20 inches out of one placement if you have the space for it. Alternatively, and this is actually a more favorite ruler of mine, this is the Stripology squared ruler. What I like about this, it has the same markings. So it has the square, the square, the square, the square. Yours doesn't come with triangles or green arrows. You can add those later. I'll talk about that in a second. Square, square. So what's nice about this ruler, it's a square up ruler too, so I use it all the time. If you put it on the edge of your fabric, you have a longer distance that you can travel, which means that you don't have to fold your fabric quite as close together. So it's got a little more space to travel in. And if you're working with it, you find that you like that a lot. The only thing, it doesn't go up to 20 inches. So as with everything, you know, pick the thing that's most important to you. I also work in a little more confined space at home. So this original ruler, that one over there, it's a little cumbersome for my cutting space. So this one is a little bit better. Plus I get that extra length for the easier cuts of those. Okay, something else I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about how you read our patterns. This is what your Sequester pattern looks like. And you'll notice up here, I'm telling you that you can make multiple sizes, but I only give you the instruction once. So if you are making a wall hanging, for example here, you need 17, oh wait, you need 4. You need 4 2.5-inch print strips for the wall hanging. If you're making, and then you can follow, if you're making the wall hanging, you always follow the first number before the dash. 4 2.5-inch strips, 4 2.5-inch strips, 5 2-inch strips, 3 1.5-inch strips. And we'll go to this section. If you're making the lap, you'll always want to follow the second or the first set of instructions after the parentheses. Okay? The first set after the parentheses. Here it says 12 for the lap. Now I stopped saying for the lap because it would get annoying if you had to read that all the time. So you need to know for the lap you're always going to follow the first set of instructions in the parentheses. That's your number to follow. What I like to do whenever I do a pattern is figure out what my size is and then with a pencil just circle that number throughout the whole pattern so I don't even have to think. I go straight to that number. That's the number that I need to make. Here's all the instructions and then I'm going to follow that number. So that's what this means when I say lap. It's the first set of instructions after the parentheses. Throw is the second, twin is the third, queen is the king. So just to review, if you're making the queen, go over here, you would need 54 half strips. You would need 13. You'll pull 13 from this and then you'll cut 100 2.5-inch squares. You follow? So just circle that number to match whatever your size is. Your key is up here and I only show it once. Go through the pattern, give a little circle, and then follow those as you go along. That helps if you're going to make a mistake in a pattern. It's so often that you're just following the wrong numbers. We see it all the time. This is just something that can help with that. Okay. Tell me in the comments what you're working on, what you're excited about, what you're doing. Stay in touch, and we're gonna make it through this thing together. And I don't mean the quilt. You're gonna do that on your own. But I can't wait to see what you guys are doing. Have fun with the cutting, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with step 2. Could be a couple of days, could be tomorrow. Who knows? It's the Mystery in Mystery Quilt. Okay, so I said that I was going to tell you about the arrows, and then I didn't. Ugh, so typical of Daniela. Okay, so these little arrows are actually by GE Designs. They come in a package that looks like this. It actually looks like just one giant blue sheet. But if you peel away, if you weed it, for those who know the vinyl lingo, there are actually removable arrows in different colors. So you can see I've used pink to designate one cut, and then I used green to designate another cut. These, Gudrun designed these, and they're perfect for the Stripology ruler because they fit right in between those grooves. So if you know that you need to cut certain dimensions and it's not already pre-marked on her wonderful rulers, you can use these. They're also great for any ruler that you might need, that you're doing cutting with, because they are removable. They don't leave any sort of residue. They come off very easily. And if you're very careful with them, you can use them again. See, just reposition them. You can see that they come pink and green, and here's the pack, so we know they come with blue. Wonderful stickers. Highly recommend them. Add them to your shopping list.